Hello again. Sad news. My good friend Janos of Pelerin, Montsegur village, passed away on the 11th of January 2026. His sudden demise was a profound shock to me because in September last year, 2025, we were both making plans for our future regarding things happening in Languedoc, Montsegur and at Pelerin, where he was still renovating and being organised for the future. My partner Monica and I visited and stayed for a month at Pelerin in Montsegur, virtually for the month of September last year. And there we were reunited with Janos and his partner Krista. He had, it would appear, successfully conquered his cancer of the spine, and he was well on the mend. Today I want to say a few words about Janos as I knew him, and also later show a number of photographs of him in September last year, as well as some older photographs and some videos that we had that I'd put together over the years. Janos was born in Norway, and as well as Norwegian he spoke English and French fluently. He was a great storyteller in all those languages, and very often I'd be sitting in the kitchen and listening to Janos speak in various languages to guests who had arrived. And he could tell a good tale, and they were always amused. And I think, well, everyone that I knew who stayed there enjoyed their stay and their encounters with Janos. Pelerin, the bread and breakfast small hotel that he'd renovated and worked so hard on, was a pivot. It was some place for seekers, spiritual seekers, pilgrims from various nations could come together and just enjoy conversation, the meeting of like minds. And of course he called it Pelerin, the pilgrim, as this is what he actually wanted it to be. A place where people could meet, old friends meet, and meet new friends, all within a spiritual, with a spiritual ambience. So in this respect, the Pelerin was actually quite a great success, because literally thousands of people over the years had stayed there, and I think most have gained something from their visit. They walked away more than what they had arrived. We loved being there, and over the years, with a number of our visits, we had become like family to both Janos and to Krista. It was a real spiritual and mystic retreat for us, and we always left Montsegur feeling with a sense of peace. We were very cognizant of the tragedy that happened there, the massacre of Montsegur, as it is so commonly known, but we always found it a place of peace which calmed our spirits and soothed our souls. And Janos was very much a part of that. During our different stays, Janos was our guide and took us to quite a number of places that were not really known to the average tourist. And this included trips up the mountain and took us to some nooks and crannies that others were unaware of, and that included going down to where there were stone missiles. I think we counted on one occasion 14 stone missiles that were just laying in the ground and were yet to be used by the Crusaders against the Cathars with their siege engine, the mangonel. So we owe you, Janos. You gave us so much and gave us insights into some of the mysteries of Montsegur. I need to acknowledge and thank Krista, who cared for him during those number of years, those hard years when he battled cancer of the spine. She cared for him, she nurtured him, and we thought he was back to health, and he seemed to grow in strength and spirit. So his passing was quite a shock, really. On our last visit in September last year, we used to go down to the garden, and it was part of the plans for the future to become as self-sufficient as they possibly could with the fruits and the vegetables from the garden, also their bees, which provided honey and also candles, and of which we brought about 5,000 back to Australia. So when we have dinner on occasions, we bring out the candle, and so that gives us an ongoing physical connection to Janos. These beautiful beeswax candles. Another aspect of our visits to Montsegur was the fact that Krista was an accomplished photographer who had an eye for the things in nature that most of us just pass over. She could create photographs of such beauty and exquisiteness out of the seemingly mundane aspects, situations and events in nature, especially amongst the plants and insects. I think this is something that Janos truly appreciated in her feeling for her feelings for nature, that she could express so vividly in her photography. Monica and I offer to all those who are connected to Janos, Krista, his family, his children by a previous marriage, Miriam and Christopher, and those in Montsegur village who must really mourn his passing, because he was such an integral part of the village and village life. And he genuinely tried to help those who needed assistance whenever he could, because that was just part of his generous nature. Certainly from my own experience, he assisted me on innumerable times because of my little to broken French. But he was there. He picked us up at a station on one occasion, or another time organised a hire car. Another occasion we had mechanical problems, and he managed to get that sorted out. And quite often he'd take us to different places that he thought we'd be interested in. And at other times he'd just say, look, I'm heading out so-and-so, just jump in with me and keep me company. Janos and I both had a deep interest in the spiritual and in the mystical. And many a night over a bottle of red wine, or sometimes outside under the tree of knowledge, we would speak and chat into the wee small hours of the morning. Janos, as a young man, had travelled to India, and there he encountered and experienced some very deep mystical events, which went on to literally shape his life and his understanding of the universe and some of the deeper mysteries belonging to life, which included those of Catholicism, Gnosticism. It wasn't just me. He often had these deep and profound conversations with people who visited Pelerin, and so his presence will be truly missed, and the Catholicism and the knowledge and circumstances of Catholicism will be diminished by his passing, because Pelerin was a meeting place. It was a meeting place. It was a meeting place of the souls, where people of similar ideas, seekers of wisdom, Gnostics, eclectics. It didn't matter what your spiritual and mystical bent was. At Pelerin, you could feel at home, because Janos was open to all those aspects, we'll say the higher aspects of life. Now, I certainly don't want to make out Janos to be sanctified or saintly. He was a very human, and my God, could he be stubborn. If you're in for an argument, Janos was up for it. So his stubbornness it could be irritating, but at the same time, he could really stick to his conviction. So, to his friends, I think it could be both a blessing and a curse. But that way, Janos, I want to end my few words with a mystical experience that occurred only a few days ago. I've been thinking about Janos and why he had not made any contact, some form of mystical contact. And I thought, well, why hasn't he contacted my ex-wife, who's deeply spiritual, and some other friends of mine who have died? They've come to her and said, "Oh, I've got a message for Johnny," and they gave her the message and so forth. And she said, "Well, I don't know what they're talking about, but I understood immediately when I got the message." And I thought, why haven't I heard from Janos one way or another? Then, a couple of days ago, Monica was looking out to the patio, our small patio, which is up on one story up on the ground, and we have a clothesline there, and this big black bird, literally a foot long, it landed on the nylon clothesline. Now there's a branch nearby which it could have landed on, but it landed on the clothesline, and of course, and it had its back to us, And what happened, because it was on the nylon clothesline, it twisted and turned, and so with its back to us, here was this big blackbird with its tail feathers, which was like a hand, literally waving goodbye or waving hello. And there was this bird, and as soon as it happened, immediately I knew it was Janos. It just hit me in my belly, and I said, "Janos!" I called out, and so I was astounded, and of course I had plenty of time to get a camera, but I didn't. I was just literally so astounded, and I just kept watching. And then Monica said, "Get a camera." So I grabbed my iPad and went out, and as I went through the door, it just moved along, and unfortunately I just caught a little bit of it as it flew up onto the window. Now that was amazing, but there was no doubt about it, and it's how the departed will often take on the form of a bird, one way or another. Finally, after that, I composed a poem about Janos, and I'll read that poem to you, and I hope you enjoyed some of the photographs of Montsegur, Janos, Krista, and the times we visited there. Bye for now. Talk again soon.
Janos flew in today, this morning, just to say goodbye. He left many forlorn from his new home above the sky. Sadly, Janos, my friend, he died on 11th January 2026. He was a 68-year-old with whom I had a deep friendship. Flew in, you did say, but in what way could that be okay? Well, he arrived as a black shiny bird in a spiritual way. He perched on a clothesline out there in our small patio. which twisted so that his tail feathers waved us hello. Normally a bird lands on the branch of a tree quite naturally, not a clothesline when nearby were the branches of a tree. But this was my friend Janos, not your ordinary blackbird, saying farewell from a spirit world where he couldn't be heard. Janos ran the B&B La Pelerin in the village of Montsegur, where he was known to 1,000s of pilgrims who rested there, where he listened to their stories and he told them his tales. He had time for everyone, no matter from where they set sail. He was like another brother to me in France, as well to Monica, while Krista was our sister who cared for all who visited there. In the shade of that great peak which housed the Cathars of yore, Janos will always be an integral part of the story of Montsegur.